Were people always, over the years, worried about being happy? Or are we living in a time where people have more time to think about how they feel about particular things rather than worrying about whether the saber-toothed tiger was going to eat them or whether we were scratching out enough food on a daily basis to feed the family? Was happiness, is this a new problem we have in a sense?
Well, I mean, it might be slightly more exaggerated today than it was, but of course, this goes back to Aristotle 2,400 years ago, and it was Aristotle in this book, the Nicomachean Ethics, in book 1, right at the very beginning, the whole foundation for his ethics. You know, he makes this observation that happiness is the one thing you can choose for itself. Everything else is chosen for the sake of happiness. So this one word, this one idea in our mind is literally determining what we think about ourselves, where our lives are going, what kinds of friends we are going to pursue, what kinds of jobs we're going to pursue, what kinds of marriages we're going to pursue, what our values and our principles are going to be, what our religious life or our life of piety, as he would call it, is going to be. In other words, it's going to determine everything we pursue because, of course, we want to be happy. So that's why Aristotle takes, you know, this big chunk of book 1 of the Nicomachean Ethics right up front and begins to describe, well, what are the kinds of happiness? What are the kinds of desire that need to be fulfilled? Because remember, happiness is the fulfillment of a desire. So he takes a lot of time to develop this, and he does it because he knows this one term will affect the lives of his students and his faculty more than any other subject he could possibly be pursuing. The wrong notion of happiness is really going to get you into not only a wasted life, but potentially a destructive life, whereas the right notion of happiness can get you not only into a good life, but into an ultimately fulfilled life in God. And certainly Aristotle, you know, sees, you know, all 4 levels of happiness himself and wants his own students to pursue the highest levels.
Well, in that sense, do you think one of the problems we have today is that people are looking for happiness in the wrong places?
Yes, that's exactly the problem. We are what I'm going to call a level 1 and level 2 culture, and we are so level 1 and level 2 that we are ignoring level 3 and level 4, and I'll explain that in a moment. But the ignoring of level 3 and level 4 is first going to make, that's one reason we're going to be unhappy. I'll call that emptiness. I'll come back to it. But there's another reason why pursuing level 1 and level 2 alone is going to make you unhappy. And level 1 happiness, right, that's the kind of happiness that comes from, you know, pleasure, external pleasure or external possessions. You know, I have a Mercedes 500 E-Class, I'm happy. I eat a bowl of linguine with extra garlic, I'm happy. There's nothing to it, it's an external pleasure, it's a material thing, I get the thing, it makes me happy. Level 2 is where our culture is, about 70% of our culture might be called dominant level 2 happiness. That's ego comparative happiness. Who's achieving more, who's achieving less, who's got more power, who's got less power, who's got more status, less status, you know, who's more intelligent, less intelligent, more athletic, less athletic, more beautiful, less beautiful, who's a winner, who's a loser. Now that's very typical, right? God gave us that set of desires because there's a really good side to those desires, right? The pursuit of excellence, right? The pursuit of you know, self-development, the idea of self-esteem, of being able to face your competitors, even the competitors that threaten you, that you have courage and so forth. So there's many good things about level 2. However, if that's the only thing you're worried about, who's more intelligent, less intelligent, achieving more, achieving less, more status, less status, more power, less, more control, less control, if that's what's worrying you alone, that's what you think real happiness is going to come from, get ready for this kind of unhappiness. Jealousy, fear of failure, fear of loss of esteem, right? Ego sensitivity. I don't care if you're the winner of the Western world. You know, I thought of myself as an intelligent enough kid. I give a presentation in class one day. I make a mistake in pronouncing the word spectroscopy, a very well-known physical process for measuring.
I've had that trouble many
and
times.
so forth.
Many times. Spectroscopy.
Anyway, this kid walks
A lot of
up
people
to
can
me
relate to that,
afterwards
Father.
and he goes, yeah, right. Anyway, I mispronounced this word, and this kid walks up to me and he goes, Spencer, that word spectroscopy, you pronounced it spectroscopy 3 times, and now everybody believes you're an idiot, you know. So I go home and I take these, you know, I'm terribly concerned about this, right? I have all these feelings of embarrassment and anger at myself and everything else. You start having suicidal feelings over the mispronunciation of a word. Absolutely. I mean, winners are going to get it as much as losers, right? And people who are in between, you know, who sit there and sweat bullets at night, you know, that they could, you know, do something wrong or be revealed as less than a god or less competitive than the next person. You know, it's a kind of a cultural misery. And on top of it, because you're not fulfilling your level 3 and level 4 desires, you're feeling deep emptiness, right? And of course, with all of this panoply of negative feelings, yeah, we're unhappy. We're absolutely unhappy in the culture, and it is really I'd almost call it a pandemic. Right. It's so you know, over the top. As the media keeps stoking level 1 and level 2 happiness because it sells things. Right. And also because, of course, it's worried about image, and image is basically on level 1 and level 2. Right. That's what, you know, that's the levels that worry about image. And so all, you know, Facebook, I mean, talk about exacerbating a problem. You know, I mean, you have now, it's not just you getting to know you, the person, the friend, you know, Doug Keck. What's really important now is the image of Doug Keck that he portrays of himself on the Facebook, and sometimes that image barely resembles the reality of the person. They've created a complete facade, and people are congratulating them for it. But still the emptiness persists. Right. And still the sense of loneliness and meaninglessness, despondency persists because of the absence of religion, the absence of contribution, the absence of deeper meanings in life. Still the jealousy, fear of failure, fear of loss of esteem, inferiority, superiority, ego sensitivities, ego rage, ego blame, self-pity. It persists on this level, which is driving not only our kids crazy, but our middle-aged people crazy, and frankly, a lot of our older people crazy. We're out of control, and if we don't start getting a hold of this reflectively and educationally in the context of our religion and our faith, we are going to go crazy as a culture. Just look around.